Hello, I'm Ben. Welcome to the channel. So today we're going to talk about OSHA's top 10 most frequently cited violations. And this is for the year 2023 and the year so far. We're not complete yet, but we're almost all the way through it in the last quarter now. And these lists, this is pretty common, okay? So the trends over the last few years have looked very much the same. And the issues that people keep having are very much the same. So in the previous video, we talked about Gemba walks, and in previous videos, we've talked about lean and safety around manufacturing and process type plants. This has a lot to do with those when it comes to OSHA. So we'll go through the list here, and this will be a thumbnail for you so you can actually take a picture of that and zoom in as you like for OSHA's top 10 most frequently cited violations for 2023. Number one is the same as it's been for years: fall protection and general requirements. Fall protection doesn't necessarily mean from a height. That's the most common thing you think about, falling from a ladder or falling from something like that. Ladders and scaffolding have their own locations on this. So fall protection is not just about that. It could be with a dock because the dock doesn't have a chain up. It could be from a raised platform where you're working that's not scaffolding, or a raised deck on a piece of automation, or a raised work table on a piece of automation. Any of which that you could step off of and fall in an uncontrolled manner. So that's number one, fall protection general requirements. Number two is hazard communication. So back in the day, every plant or business you went into had an OSHA log on the wall. And on that wall, inside that log was required all the documentation for any chemical or soap or any material used in that process of production or cleaning or whatever the maintenance situation is. The hazard communication has to be held to expectation in that log. The health risks of those things, what damage they can do, how you stop the damage, and what next steps are is all part of that OSHA required communication and documentation. If at any time OSHA comes in, they have to be able to review these documents. A few years back, they went away from the physical book, and you can actually have this online and have it where it's a validatable document. It does have to be available to all members of your team, though. So I suggest having the paper documents as well to be on hand should people want to strum through that, but also having it backed up in a digital format. Because typically you want to use the same chemicals and things in your processes. You don't want to vary those things from time to time because it's going to impact the safety and it's going to impact the quality of the product. So you want to make sure that you're sticking to the same thing there. So number two is hazard communication. Number three is ladders. We mentioned that earlier. Ladders are dangerous, okay? I went to a plant one time that I took over in Dallas, and they had 2 injuries the prior year, which had significant fees because people fell off of ladders. The first thing I did at that plant was throw all the ladders away. Okay, so not only do you have issues with falling off of ladders, but if a ladder is damaged, it can be an OSHA violation. So I threw those away because they were damaged or was missing a foot or wherever else. So it was a hazard that was increased. And I basically said, whatever work we need to do from the ground. Once we do the work from the ground and you put the thing away with the forklift, now you don't need a ladder because you did it properly from the ground. And if it was an outside situation like a roof or tall walls or something like that, or cleaning spider webs from a warehouse ceiling, I would hire third parties to come in and do that because they would have to supply their own safety around those things, and it kept my people safe and on the ground and without being in a situation where they could hurt themselves or create an OSHA violation. So that's number three, ladders. Number four is scaffolding. Scaffolding, we use that often in business to have a second tier of work where you can work on something greater, or if you're building something large and putting that together in-house versus at the site. And at the site actually has to follow the OSHA requirements as well. So scaffolding is dangerous. You have to be very, very specific in it. People died of significant falls a lot in the last century prior to, this century and this millennia, because scaffolding and regulation around scaffolding has come a long way, same as ladders. So scaffolding is still something that violations there, because typically the stuff can get damaged and people don't replace it. It can get expensive to replace these things. But at the end of the day, if you're going to do a body of work that includes things in height, you're going to have your ladders and your scaffolding buttoned up. So number four is scaffolding. Number five is powered industrial trucks. So you're talking about forklifts, you're talking about front-end loaders, you're talking about anything that does a power job that are fun to drive right on work sites. Those things all have storage requirements. They have refueling requirements. They have PPE requirements to do all that we talked about, refueling and storing and all those things. Use a forklift that's propane driven, by the way. OSHA requires that you have a face shield. So if you open that can to put the pipe on, it can't blow into your eyes and blind you. But OSHA also has glove requirements there too, because when that gas comes out of that can, it's extremely cold and can do damage to your skin. So all those things, they have requirements. Each industrial truck is going to have its own expectation, its own requirements. So whatever you use at your facility, it's nice to have a standard version so you don't have to sustain all the ups and downs of all the rest. But that's number 5, powered industrial trucks. Number 6 is lockout, tagout. I'm going to pause there for a minute. Most people that are killed in industrial accidents are because of lockout, tagout. If you ever watch Mr. Ballin, it's a great channel on YouTube. Some of the horror stories that he tells are people that went into equipment that wasn't properly locked and tagged out. And once they went into that area, it was then cut on and they perished. So he's had some about ovens in a plastic plant, ovens in a restaurant, compact areas in the paint booth, air conditioning units. He's done videos on all those different things, all of which are OSHA violations, which are also lockout, tagout related deaths. So it's a very common situation. I myself have observed a lockout, tagout death on 2 separate occasions, one of which was at a feed facility where 2 people drowned in soybeans. They were fixing a canister truck. All right, it's like a dump truck, but on the bottom it has a valve, so they fill it up with soybeans, and they were working on the valve because it had become jammed and could not clean itself like it was supposed to do in working this mechanism. And basically, while they were in the truck, they got 6 tons worth of soybeans dumped on their heads, and there's no swimming out of that. Okay, that was pressure on top of them, and they actually inhaled the soybeans on the dust. So the actual cause of death was they drowned on soybeans. It was suffocation through respiratory collapse. So that's a lockout tagout situation. Electrocutions. I watched a video online one time where lockout tagout procedures were not properly followed. The first guy didn't lock out the deck. He didn't lock out the power and tag that out. It was cut back on. He was fried. It was an unfortunate event where it was a son, father, and grandfather that all were the electrical maintenance in this plant. It was the son that got fried first, the father that got fried second, and the grandfather that was fried third, all because of one lockout tagout incident. So lockout tagout is serious. If you work in a plant where you're going to just maintain, correct, update, perform standard maintenance, remove obstacles and debris, whatever it may be, lockout tagout means you remove the power from the machine so it's shut off. You then put a lock on it, so it cannot be removed. You have the only key, and you tag that lock so they know it's yours and it's your key. That means nobody can cut this back on. Nobody can cut this lock off. You have to go unlock it and remove that. So it means if you're doing the work and you're in harm's way, your lock will remain. If someone removes that lock, it puts you in a situation to be harmed or killed. Not only is the company then liable, the person that removed that lock just created a criminal offense that puts you in harm's way, and the company can also sue them as well for doing that to one of their valued teammates. So lockout tagout is very, very important. That's number 6, lockout tagout. Number 7 is respiratory protection. Self-explanatory. If you do paint, if you work with chemicals, if you work with cleaning products, certain products can require that you have respiratory protection. If you don't use respiratory protection, it can damage your lungs, create problems like asthma, or kill you on the spot. And certain people's lungs are more sensitive to things than other people's, just like anything. If you have a weak constitution around respiratory strength, certain chemicals could kill you. The first time you inhale, you may be in a croup tent. I myself, as a young man, spent a week and a half in a hospital in a what they call a croup tent. It's basically a tent that's misting you all the time. It's keeping you wet. And that keeps your inhaling and exhaling very wet, so it helps your lungs repair themselves, because I damaged my lungs with a friend of mine when we mixed some chemicals and had a slight explosion. So young and dumb, I think I was like 12 or 13 years old when this happened, but it put us both in the hospital for about about 2 weeks. So number 7 is respiratory protection. Number 8 is fall protection and training requirements. So not only is it necessary that you have the fall protection in place, but you also have the proof of training. Just like any of this stuff, you have to have the proof of training on hand. Fall protection is serious. Obviously, 3 of these things are OSHA violations, or fall protection, ladders, and scaffolding. So you can imagine that it's a very specific thing. So number 8 is fall protection training requirement. So it's not the actual fall itself, it's the fall protection. Are you doing it appropriately? Are you wearing it appropriately? And have you been trained on it? And is there documentation of the training on site or in the electronic OSHA documents? Next is 9, personal protective and life-saving equipment, eye and face protection. So that's PPE. I've seen a lot of people get hurt because they didn't use tools appropriately. Eye protection is some of the simplest things on the planet. It's just glasses, big plastic glasses that either go on your bald face or go over your glasses. That's it, big plastic glasses. I have seen people several times not put those things on and lose an eyeball, lose vision, burn their face, bust their mouth open, knock out teeth because they weren't wearing proper protection. Just the other day, I had a gentleman work on one of my vehicles, and he went to grinding away and had no PPE, he had no eye protection. So I walked up to him and said, hey man, hold on for a second. Went to my truck door, because I always have 2 or 3 pairs of gloves and glasses in my vehicles, and brought him a set of glasses, said put those on. And he got done with the job, he said, thank you sir, you have a good one. He went to hand them back and said, no, you keep those. I said, put that in that same bag that that grinder came out of. That way, next time you go to your grinder, you already have some eye protection in there, which should be a no-brainer. But people don't think about it. So it's just something to think about. Number 9 is personal protective equipment, which is largely is eye and face protection. It may also be earplugs as well. And number 10, the final on the top 10 for OSHA's frequently cited violations, is machine guarding. Machine guarding can be something that can save your life. And in the 2 deaths that I've seen from a specific industry, one gentleman went past 3 sets of guarding, and when he did that, he got into a zone where a robot was moving, and the robot killed him. Not like Terminator, didn't pull out a gun or anything. It just spun around at an incredible rate of speed when it was going back to rest, which means it was going to home, which is how the machine ends the day at the night. So that's what it's called. It was going to rest or going to home. And he was in between where that arm was going to before it stopped. And it caught him in the back of his head and killed him dead. So to have it be able to do that, he didn't lock and tag out, right? He didn't remove the power of it. He ignored the machine guarding. I mean, he broke just about every rule you could think of. But the worst part was, he killed himself. I mean, he put his life at risk for no reason. It would have taken minutes to lock out that equipment and tag it out before he went into those zones. And the guarding was there with warning signs on it saying, don't go beyond this point. Don't go past this. Don't. And each one of those things he had to go past and then put it back in order so it would not have an alarm, so the thing would still run. So the point is, he purposely went past these things with the expectation of powering the equipment, and the equipment ultimately killed him. And the other one was, I saw a gentleman cut 2 of his fingers off because he went past 2 sets of guarding on a bandsaw. And the first guarding was basically just a gate to keep you far enough away that you couldn't get your arms to the blade. And the second was a vertical guard, which means you can only put your hands in this far, and you had to lean over it to put your hands under it, and he did both of those things. He went past the gate and put his hands under it, and it took these 2 fingers off. So machine guarding is very, very significant and very purposeful. It is an engineered safety option. So when you go beyond it, it was put there for a designed purpose, which means it's freaking stupid to go beyond. So that's OSHA's top 10 for 2023. Hopefully this video was useful to you. If you like content like this and subjects such as these, please like and subscribe to the channel. I obviously enjoy these things. I work professionally in trying to prevent OSHA injuries and incidents. I myself have 4 different OSHA certifications because I try to keep my team safe Ultimately, your valued teammates are the most valuable, most expensive part of your business. Take other people's mistakes and learn from them, okay? You shouldn't have to make these mistakes yourself. You should be able to look at this list and say, okay, well, let me go this week and do a gimbal walk, just like our last video said, and look at the fall protection, look at the hazard communication, look at the ladders, look at the scaffolding, look at the powered industrial trucks, look at your lockout tagout, look at your lockout tagout binder for the year. See if there's any entries in it. If there are entries in it, then you know it went well. If there aren't entries in it, that means you're not locking, tagging stuff out. Look at the respiratory protection, look at the fall protection, look at the PPE utilization, look at the consumption of PPE. If you see that you have this many shifts and you have this many teammates, then you should go through this much per week. If you all of a sudden see a deep dip in your PPE consumption, that means you got a shift that ain't using it properly. And the last is machine guarding. It's just dumb for people to go around it. You need to say it that way so people don't go around it. If you tell somebody they're stupid if they do something and then they go and do it, that should say a lot. OSHA's top 10 for 2023. Be good.